The Data Cloud Diaries, using the Bulk Ingestion API for airline flight data, Part 2. Welcome to the second part of the Data Cloud Diaries using the Bulk Ingestion API. We're pulling in airline flight data and feeding it now in bulk into the Data Cloud so we can do our calculated insights and streaming insights. So today we're going to finish it up, take you over the finish line, and show you the data in Data Cloud. So here is a website, not the data I'm using, but a nice indicative data of airline flight data. And these planes are actually moving. And so I wanted to get access to this data. So I used on Rapid API gateway, I'm using the Aero data box, and I'm getting the FIDS flight data. So right here, FIDS schedules by airport. So this is my C# bridge, which is going to be a bridge pulling in the data. I have the FIDS structures here that I'm deserializing, and I'm actually flattening them into my own, under my Data Cloud business object, my own airport traffic structure, and I generated my YAML for this. These are little files. So this YAML I generated and used it to create the structures, the DLOs and the DMOs inside of Data Cloud. Now what we're going to do is we're going to follow the loader using the bulk mode. So let's take a minute and talk about using the documentation, what it means to load a large amount of data into Data Cloud. So we're going to have a multi-step process. We're going to create a job. So we're going to hit the API and hit the ingest jobs. We're going to pass in this payload, the object, the source name, and the operation. And we're going to get this response. And then we're going to upload the job data. So then this is where we're going to do a CSV put, passing in the CSV as the body. Once we're done, we're going to tell Salesforce to start processing. So we're going to close the job by calling in this is a patch, and we're going to pass this in with the status of upload complete. Then what we get is the ability to, let's say, monitor the jobs, getting all the jobs, and we can watch when the job is in progress. So it's a create, step 1, upload, step 2, and close the job, step 3, and monitor the status in step 4. So let's walk through those steps in my code. So we're going to start right here with the main, Aero main. And we're calling my bulk 2. The bulk 2 is a new thing I wrote just in the last hour or two. And so what we're going to do is we're going to jump into bulk 2. And we're going to go to the Aero call and the bulk 2. So I'm taking Phoenix as my source airport. I'm starting with October 3rd as the beginning date. And then the end time is 12 hours. And that's because the API limits me to 12 hours of time. So what I'm going to be doing is jumping in 12-hour increments. So I have a little loop going for 14 days and jumping for each of my two 12-hour increments. And then for each of those 12-hour increments, I am loading the flight data into an airport traffic list. And I'm creating a new file for each, and then I'm doing a CSV writer where I am writing my own CSV for each of these times. And it's very straightforward to do the CSV writer. Let's take a look at that. So my CSV writer is just using the CSV helper class. I'm receiving a list of airport traffic, and I'm using a stream writer to write the records. And it's a great API with just a handful of lines of code. Writes the API, writes it to the CSV. Let's take a look at one of those CSVs. So if we look at my file folder, these are all my CSVs. Phoenix 10.3, 10.5, 10.7. So this is jumping in my increments of data. And in each one, I have a big Excel full of data. So what we're going to be doing is I'll be looking why it's skipping a couple of days, but let's not worry about that for the sake of this example. What we're going to be doing is we have a bunch of CSVs. We've saved them. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to go and do the first step. The first step was right here. create the job. And we saw that from the documentation. So I created a standalone Apex class for the bulk. So here we have create the bulk job, which will then take in the object and the data source name, and it will create the job. And let's go take a look at those details. So the creating the job serializes the data stream, calls the post statement, deserializes the response, and sends it back. And then what we're going to do is we also have upload the CSV, where we pass in the file name. It's going to check the job, call step 2, which is ingesting the job, and put the CSV up there. So that is a straightforward sending the CSV as the body of the call. And the last step is to close the job. And all we're doing is passing the state equals upload complete. So with these handful lines of code, I'm following the 4-step process for the bulk data load. If we go back to arrow call, what we can see is we're going to loop over. We're going to call the flights. And for each 12 hours for 14 days, we're going to be creating the CSVs. And I think I showed that to you, that I have all of these CSVs created for 14 days. And then what it's going to do, it's going to then send them into the job. And we're going to take a look, and this has already been sent into Salesforce. And we see that by going to Postman. And I'm calling, there is one of the calls, and one of the calls, which is get all jobs. So if we call get all jobs authenticated, we hit this and we're going to get a fresh query. We see that we have this job is complete. This job I aborted, I was testing, and this job is complete. So I have just uploaded these files into Salesforce. So what we've done is we should expect to see from the date of 10/3 going forward, jumping forward all the way up for about 14 days. Now let's look at the CSVs. And there may have been a skip in the dates. I'm seeing kind of a 2-day jump, so I'll need to debug that. But I am seeing data from 10/3, 10/5, 10/7, 10/9. So it looks like it's got a 2-day skip, but that still should give us about half the data for the month of October of this year. So we're here in my data cloud, Salesforce org that drives Data Cloud. We're going to go to the Data Explorer. We're going to hit SteveTechArc. We're going to hit the data model object. We're going to go to airport traffic. And remember, the Data Explorer only gives us 10 columns and only 100 rows of data. Let's put a filter on this. We're going to add a filter, and we're going to use the date, traffic date time, which is going to be greater than, and we're going to put our 10/3 number. So here is October. We'll do October 2nd at 6:01. So this is going to show me any data that is greater than that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to edit the columns. We're going to remove, we don't need the revised time local nor the airport name. We don't need the iCal. But what we are looking for is 2 things, the traffic date and time, and we'll look at the primary key. So let's move traffic date and time to the top. Let's move primary key to the top, and we go done. Okay, so now what we're going to see is if we sort by traffic date and time, we're seeing data coming in from 10/3, all takeoff and landings. This is data that we bulk data loaded. You'll see we've got rows and rows of data coming in from 10/3. Let's go now according to our CSVs. We also should have some, let's go take a look at 10/19. We're going to go to our date and we're going to go to, let's say 10/18 and see if we see 10/19 data. We're going to jump over and do a fresh query against all the jobs. And we're going to look at the job, and we see that this was the job I had run was a complete job, total processing time, and it load the files. So this is the steps for loading the Bulk API into Data Cloud. So to summarize, you're going to pull from an API. You're going to do your serialization to a flattened structure. You're going to configure Data Cloud to receive that structure. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build your CSVs, and you're going to do the step process of opening the job. You're going to upload your CSVs, and then you're going to close the job. And you saw how in Postman I was able to monitor the job, and then the data will get in there. And I'm going to still be refining this code, and I may be revisiting this in subsequent videos, but I've been able to data load using the Bulk API. Hope this was helpful. I hope this helps you someday. Thank you very much. And thank you for taking the Bulk to its destination. Join us again, same bad time, same bad channel, SteveTechArc on YouTube and www.stevetecharc.com.